Tonight I'm off to the Danish city of Copenhagen. To my surprise and delight, I'm being given an award by the Danish Free Press Society. As you know, Denmark is where a newspaper called the Jyllands-Posten published a dozen cartoons of the Muslim prophet Muhammad that, after a lengthy delay, was used as an excuse by radical Muslims to launch a jihad. The cartoons were published in the fall of 2005, and nothing happened. But in early 2006, the fascist governments of Syria and Iran used them as a pretext to launch anti-Western riots in their own countries that soon spread to useful idiots around the Muslim world. By February of 2006, hundreds of people had been killed, allegedly because of these cartoons. More than 200 killed in Nigeria alone. Of course, none of the rioters had actually seen the cartoons. They were just using the excuse of the day to riot and kill infidels. Anyways, it was a huge news story. Not the publication of the cartoons. As you can see, they're fairly boring, certainly nothing more radical than you see published on any given day in a Canadian newspaper. But what was hugely newsworthy were these orchestrated riots, Sharia censorship using violence. They were the 21st century equivalent of the 1989 Iranian fatwa against Salman Rushdie for publishing a novel called The Satanic Verses about, well, it was about Muhammad. A fatwa is a Muslim religious ruling. The Ayatollah of Iran ordered that every Muslim in the world had a duty to kill Rushdie. Rushdie has had a permanent bodyguard ever since, but others associated with his book have been murdered, including the Japanese translator of the book, who was stabbed to death. The Italian translator was also stabbed. The Norwegian publisher was shot. In 1993, a mob surrounded a hotel of the Turkish translator and set the building on fire, killing 37 people, but not the translator himself. You know, in 2012, Rushdie said he didn't think his book could be published today. Our Western society, he said, would be too nervous and scared to be free. I think he's absolutely right. It's not just that we have the threat of violence from radical Muslims from foreign countries. It's that we have the threat of censors from our own country, usually white liberals. I shouldn't even call them liberals, for the root word of liberal is the Latin word for freedom. They're not liberals, they're illiberal. They're against liberty. I know this because when the magazine I published back in 2006, the Western Standard, reprinted those cartoons as part of a news story about the riots, I was charged with 2 counts of hate speech by Alberta's odious Human Rights Commission. So it was a tag team effort, really. The complaint was filed by a radical Muslim imam named Syed Sohrawardy, an immigrant from Pakistan who believes Canada should be ruled by Muslim Sharia law. But the complaint was seized and run with by the secular Human Rights Commission and their dull Canadian bureaucrats and lawyers. It was an Alberta government lawyer, not a fire-breathing Pakistani imam, who actually interrogated me, including about my personal religious views and my political views. It was effectively the first blasphemy trial in English Canada in nearly a century. Well, that was my first taste of what I call lawfare, the use of our own Western legal system by foreign jihadists. It's brilliant. No need to get all stabby or shooty or arsony to punish a critic of Islam. Why not just get the Western government itself to punish your religious opponents for you? Because even though after 900 days the government finally dropped the charges against me, I had been put through the ringer for nearly 3 years, and it cost me about $100,000 in legal fees. The process was the punishment. So I was charged in 2006, and that interrogation video you saw was in January of 2008. But I wasn't the only one against whom this lawfare was being tried. The great Mark Steyn was hit with a triple whammy for writing an essay about, you guessed it, radical Islam. He wrote an article for Maclean's, and an extremist group, the Canadian Islamic Congress, did a triple whammy. They complained to not 1, not 2, but 3 different human rights commissions, and the BC Human Rights Tribunal was stupid and venal enough to run a 5-day trial on the matter. Now, like me, Steyn and his magazine were acquitted, but not until they were put through a 5-day ordeal in court and at least $250,000 in legal costs. So he wasn't stabbed or shot, but he was punished, and by our own government, no less. What a disgrace to Canada. So now it didn't take an Ayatollah to censor someone. Our own stupid bureaucrats and government lawyers would do it for them. It's un-Canadian for our government to censor us. This isn't Iran or Pakistan, it's Canada. But it's downright bizarre that the complaints, both against me in Alberta and against Mark Steyn in BC, Ontario, and federally, were made by people who truly are hateful bigots, like Mohammed El-Masri. I mean, here's a video clip of El-Masri, who was the president of the Canadian Islamic Congress when they filed the 3 nuisance complaints against Mark Steyn. Take a look at El-Masri appearing on Michael Corrin's TV show a few years back.
Anyone over the age of 18 in Israel is a valid target.
Anybody above 18 is a part of the Israeli popular army.
Everyone in Israel and anyone and everyone in Israel, irrespective of gender, over the age of 18 is a valid target.
Yes.
Wow. He was seriously on national TV, that was Michael Cornzo's show, saying terrorist murders are okay. And of course, the Canadian Islamic Congress believes that terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah should not be banned in Canada. Now, I don't think al-Masri should go to jail for being an idiot. Merely saying you like terrorism isn't a crime in Canada. Hating Jews or Israelis isn't a crime, or it shouldn't be. We shouldn't criminalize feelings or even offensive words. But this guy, this bigot, this terrorist apologist, was the one who instigated the hate speech complaints against Mark Stein. And the government obeyed and ran a 5-day trial of Mark Stein. Well, I went to part of that trial and blogged about it on my website. Al-Masri may be a bigot, but he's no fool. He didn't dare take the stand as a witness in his own circus. Imagine being asked about his pro-terrorist opinions. So he sent in his youth leader named Khurram Awan. Awan didn't just testify at the trial. He was a permanent media hound, doing dozens of interviews condemning Stein as a racist and a hater. Again, a bit weird coming from the Canadian Islamic Congress itself. After Stein was acquitted, Awan boasted, and I quote, "We attained our strategic objective to increase the cost of publishing anti-Islamic material," unquote. He claimed his lawfare cost McLean's up to $2 million. I think that's way too high. Even McLean's 3 lawyers surely didn't bill that much. But as far as Awan is concerned, the higher the better. That was his strategy, because this is about punishing critics of Islam. Well, I wrote about this in my book called Shakedown, and I wrote about it on my blog, and I did 100 media interviews about it, and slowly we began to turn the tables on these censors in the court of public opinion. And last year, the Parliament of Canada repealed their federal version of the hate speech law. Brian Storthseth's private member's bill passed, though only one Liberal MP stood for liberty. But here's my point, and here's why it's so ironic that my free speech award is tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm in Copenhagen getting the award, and then on Monday I'm back in Toronto in court all week, because that same Khurram Awan that went after Mark Stein is now going after me. He's suing me in defamation. Now, this trial was originally scheduled for October. I told you about it back then, but then the judge called in sick, so we had to reschedule it for January, and then it was rescheduled again for Monday, and it's locked in now. It's a go for sure, I guess, unless the judge calls in sick again. What irony, eh? A free speech award on Saturday, then a trial about my speech on Monday. But it's all part of the same fight. It's actually part of Salman Rushdie's fight. It's part of the Danish cartoonist's fight. It's part of Mark Stein's fight. In fact, what Awan is suing me about is my critical coverage of the BC human rights complaint against Mark Stein. He's clearly doing what he said they did to Stein, trying to inflict maximum cost on the enemies of his ideology, the enemies of Islam. I'm not an enemy of Islam, by the way. Of course, most Muslims, especially here in Canada, do not want to live under Sharia law and do not hate Gentiles. I'm an enemy of Islamic fascists, the same way I'm an enemy of any fascists or totalitarians, be they Muslim or Soviet or Nazi. It won't surprise you to learn that Khurram Awan's law firm is Clayton Ruby's firm. Ruby is Canada's most political lawyer, representing many extreme organizations and causes. He's a lawyer for radical environmentalist groups, including ones that are now suing the Conservative government. He's the lawyer for accused child molester Ben Levin. Ruby's wife, Harriet Sachs, is the Toronto judge who was originally scheduled to preside over David Suzuki's gimmickly trial at the Royal Ontario Museum. Ruby's the lawyer who tried to get Rob Ford, Toronto's mayor, impeached instead of letting voters make that choice. So, yeah, it's political. Of course it is. I'll save my comments on the specifics of the lawsuit for the court. But it's obvious this isn't about specifics. It's about silencing political opponents. That's what Khurram Awan boasted after he lost to Mark Stein. He said the obvious. Awan didn't lose at all. He punished a critic of radical Islam with huge costs. That's why I won't be on TV next week. I'll be in court defending against this lawfare. See, that's a cost that Awan has already managed to foist upon me. Because the lawsuit was filed against me before I joined the Sun or Quebecor, I'm not covered by company lawyers, as I am for whatever I say on TV. And I don't have a big financial benefactor like Awan does. See, that's the main cost, legal fees. I want to win, of course. No one wants to lose a lawsuit. He's increased the damages he's asking for to $100,000. And of course, he wants his legal fees too. I think I've got a good case. I hope I'll win. But even if I win, I'll still be out enormous fees. I don't want to tell you how much right now, but it's extremely expensive to run a 5-day trial with various witnesses. Awan knows that. And so does Clayton Ruby's law firm. But I'll be honest with you, even if I lose, it won't bankrupt me. It won't destroy me. I won't be penniless or homeless, thank God. But there will be something far worse that happens if I lose. The Islamic censors will win. If my criticisms of Khurram Awan are ruled not defensible, if it becomes legally forbidden to criticize lawfare by Islamic extremists, then we're all in trouble, all of us. Not just me, not just the Sun, but you too. And what journalist would dare criticize radical Muslims ever again? What politician would ever again? As Salman Rushdie said, he doesn't think his book would be published today. Well, are we all about to be Rushdied? Not by a fatwa by an Ayatollah, but by a case of lawfare in a Canadian court. That's why I'm telling you about this fight. That's why I'm fighting so hard. That's why I'm taking a week off next week. And that's why I'm not above asking for help. I'm sorry, I need it. If you want to learn more about the lawsuit, if you want to be part of my legal fight too, please visit my website, standwithezra.ca, to learn how you can help me fight for freedom. You can chip into my legal war chest, if you can, or even just upload a picture of yourself wherever you are in the world with a sign saying, you stand for free speech too. Let's show the world. Let's show Clayton Ruby's firm. Let's show Khurram Awan. Let's show Mohammed al-Masri that Canada is not Iran or Pakistan. Canada is a free country, and we have freedom of speech, and we're not about to give it up. If you're in Toronto, come by the courthouse on Monday to give me support. I'll give you a full report when I'm back on the show on Monday, March 10th.